Joining us on the broadcast is Dr. J. Rajmohan Pillai, Chairman of the Beta Group. Mr. Pillai, good afternoon. Good to have you on India Ahead. We've been discussing this yesterday that it's not just a sad day for the Cafe Coffee Day family and the family of V.G.Siddhartha, but a sad day for all the other players in the industry and a sad day for the country as well, because CCD was a story of startups that did really well in the country, had exponential growth. It expanded not just in India but overseas as well. But with the situation and the scenario that unfolded over the last 48 hours, resulting in the death of V.G.Siddhartha, it highlights the perils of doing business in India, the perils of sustaining that business in India, the perils of maintaining a business that has seen exponential growth that is now met with stiff competition in the industry.
Very true. Basically, it's a very sad day for Make in India. Siddhartha is one of the icons of what India can actually make and actually compete with international brands, take concepts and make it not only national, even international. It is very difficult for brands in India to actually become big because the competition between the foreign brands and Indian brands are very unequal. The kind of the size of companies like Siddhartha compared to a Starbucks is no competition. It's like a giant fighting a dwarf. So those are the kind of competitions and the intense pressure that an Indian actually goes through when they actually try to make, because the whole system that happens within the country, whether it is in financing, whether it is on licensing, whether it is on the fact of getting a small license like for one Cafe Coffee Day, it requires about 57 licenses to actually start one of its units, whether it is from the corporation to the fire department. So those are the kind of competitions that actually an Indian faces in comparison to an international brand where the systems in businesses are far more easy. We need to start considering the people like this as icons.
Mr. Pillai, and that's exactly why Cafe Coffee Day continues to be that brand which not only has history but a sense of familiarity as far as the coffee culture in India is concerned. Now, India...
They have made the market well. Like you were saying, we have actually started converting a tea drinking group of people to a coffee drinking people. Today, the market is already set. It becomes far more easier for Cafe Coffee Day to go out of business and the large international brands to actually come in. Now, in business, like in any other, like in politics or other areas, the competition is extremely intense, and it is in that important situation that it is almost when Starbucks was getting bigger, the other brands like Levesta was coming into the country, that you see the attacks on Cafe Coffee Day from internal Indian groups itself, like the income tax or the other people. I have no idea on what are the other pressures that he was going through, because the letter talks about even pressures of financial pressures that he was actually facing.
There are a number of points there highlighted in that letter. Obviously, you had a clarification coming in from the income tax department yesterday. They raised eyebrows over the verification of the signature. He also spoke about, in that alleged letter, about some private equity investors, whether it was KKR, whether it was Silk Route. Now, remember, all these are marquee investors who somehow at some point of time has said that we've had nothing going on at this point of time. But you know what? I want to understand the bigger picture, Mr. Pillai, which not many of us address. If you look at that alleged letter, and if we believe that it was actually written by V.G.Siddhartha, it also shows how lonely it probably can get at the top, the mental pressures of running a business. And these are conversations that still happen behind closed doors. Time now to address these issues openly before another V.G.Siddhartha case happens.
You should understand, all the papers, everybody is only talking about the stock prices and the assets that he is having. Nobody talks about the brand value that Cafe Coffee Day has. The brand value of Cafe Coffee Day will actually be about 3 times of all the assets that he is holding otherwise. And the kind of loans that you're talking about will be a minuscule in comparison with actually the brand value. It's like the brand value of Coke or brand value of Pepsi. And that is something that a lot of people are not taking into consideration. Today, a person like Siddhartha will not have any problem actually raising like 6,000 or 10,000 crores. No problem at all if he starts pledging, including the brand, or even up to 100,000 crores in a situation like this. Unfortunately, India is one of the countries that you are unable to raise that kind of money for the brands in comparison to an America or a Europe where there is a developed economy. Siddhartha should
Absolutely.
never have had any problems. The kind of shares that he is actually holding, the kind of businesses that he has started, whether it has helped Mindtree get into operations from the very beginning, or the logistics company, or Cafe Coffee Day, he would be one of the richest people in any other country other than India, especially in developed countries.
You know, Mr. Pillai, what I'm trying to understand is we've seen severe cases in the past as well. These are brands that have seen exponential growth when they started, they established themselves, and then we saw a sort of a downfall, or we saw something happening with the top management. Do you think there is a given assumption when there is a startup or a brand that does really well, an assumption that that growth will just continue manifold times? Also an assumption that the economy's slowdown will not have a direct impact on the brand, because if you look at CCD currently, out of the retail coffee business, it holds about 40% share, and that's a big figure that we're talking about. Even in the number of outlets the CCD has, it has over about 1,700 outlets, which is a lot more than what the competition has currently. Despite that expansion growth, if we have the shares dwindling, does that not raise questions about the assumptions that we make about the growth when a brand does well?
Very much. I mean, like, you should understand there are many other coffee brands like Levesta that came into the country and could not compete with Cafe Coffee Day, and they've actually folded up and gone. And they've gone out of, they still sell coffee, but they've gone out of the retailing businesses. Cafe Coffee Day has stopped a lot of other people from coming, a lot of international brands from actually accessing that particular segment of market because of its beautiful pricing and the products that it sold at those pricing. And that is something that we should actually relish. And that was actually an Make in India concept that actually succeeded. Most of the other, like including Barista, came up with coffees which are far more expensive, 3 times more expensive, but he was able to make a pricing that was very important. Please also see whether there was anybody actually interested in a takeover of Cafe Coffee Day to have the share values come down. I don't think that anybody would have expected Siddhartha to actually lose his life, or take away his life. But it could easily be a pressure to actually get him to sell. Those are things that actually happens regularly in the
Absolutely, and that is why all these
industry.
Questions now are rising. What really will happen to the future of Cafe Coffee Day at this point of time? Whether we'll see a complete shelving of the brand, will there be a takeover, will there be a rebranding? Whether any of these things really happen are only hypothetical at this point of time, but what will remain is the legacy of the brand that V.G.Siddhartha has already created as far as the Indian market is concerned. Mr. Pillai, I'm running out of time. I just want to take a last question from you. At this point of time, when the startups and the entrepreneurs probably have a sense of fear, looking at the situation of how the Cafe Coffee Day scenario has really turned out, what will your message be to the startup and the entrepreneur industry, which probably looked up to Cafe Coffee Day as an inspiration brand story?
Don't become an entrepreneur unless you're extremely strong as a person, because the pressures that we face as an Indian are possibly about 100 times more than starting businesses in most of the other countries, whether it is in China or in America or Europe. So come with an extremely strong belief in yourself, and with all the pressures that you are actually facing, believe in yourself and go through it completely, because even according to me, Cafe Coffee Day will not have any problem as far as the financing. Anybody can actually take over and do it very, very well, because the systems are already made, the brand is actually made, the number of outlets are just too big for it to actually fall, and profitable outlets. He has been increasing per outlet the value every year for the last 3 years, and he has closed down some of the unprofitable ones.
Absolutely.
But
I think that's a very wise point that you've made, Mr. Pillai, there, that one needs to have a thick skin other than be sure of the investment that one has when while starting up or being an entrepreneur, because the mental pressures that come with this business is often ignored or unspoken about. Thank you so much for taking our time and talking to us here on India Ahead. With that, we're slipping into a very short break. News and updates continue on the other side.